Oh no,
Oh shit!
bruh.
What is
The
the
West has fallen. Billions must die.
mean? What does it mean, Microsoft?
An angry-looking Wojak character has been floating around as of late, saying, "The West has fallen, billions must die," among other satirical variations of the catchphrase. What's canonically like there's
Canonically, is this a religion?
there's it's like Star Wars, like there's the fucking soy jack canon.
Yes.
Canonically referred to as Chudjack, the nearsighted character. The nearsighted. What does that mean?
He wears glasses.
It should say nearsighted.
Oh, okay.
So they fucking spell
Oh,
it
yeah,
wrong.
I can see that. Nearsighted, yeah.
Character has been surfacing on 4chan since last year. Okay, first of all, this meme's been around forever. Like, way longer than a year. Who is Chudjack?
Who is Chudjack? What does
it mean? To start off, billions must die and first depopulation, as in billions of the human race must pass on. I don't think that's what it means. The term's utterance could be likened to extreme climate activists.
I don't think that's what that's referring to when it says.
No, I think it's like.
I think it's referring to a different thing, but whatever.
The frowning character in the meme is made to represent the person saying the phrase. Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, duh. Yeah, it's a caption. He is a short-haired guy with glasses, looking undeniably ugly, as if he were a caricature. This is like
wait,
intern.
Oh, there's the El Paso boy.
Soyjack.party? How did they find out about that? That is
I don't even know what that is. I have to. Welcome to Chud Burger. Oh, I need a Chud Burger right now.
Yo, they put the Jack.Jackal tweet.
Oh, so cute.
Oh, this is like what? This is like. Just a compilation of like Twitter of the past year.
Billions must dry. A muggle in my school. Hogwarts has fallen. Dude, this is okay, audience members. If you want to have fun, go onto your like Microsoft Edge and just look at the news. Oh, and you find gems like this on Microsoft.
Gemmy, this is
absolutely amazing.
People like. There was an intern who wrote this. Like,
do you think that intern is like our guy or no?
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
And he went on 4chan to get that one. He clipped that. Oh, okay.
Okay, that's
we should probably actually record what we're here to record.
Yeah, we should actually probably do an episode. Okay. Anyway, welcome back to the Knights of Dissent Show, episode 8.
Welcome back.
Today we're going to be talking about subsistence farming to avoid starvation.
Yeah, woo!
Let's go. Okay, so growing food for survival, practical considerations. I wrote these slides like 4 weeks ago, so
let's just say we recorded this episode and
technical difficulties arose.
Yeah, something went wrong.
All right, so practical considerations. What growing food will not do for you. It's not going to prevent the government from offing you. Sorry, it's just not. Samuel L. Konkin III, maybe you've read old SEK3. It's just not going to work, bro. Like, you can grow tomato.
So me growing potatoes, like in a shack in Idaho, that doesn't hurt the U.S. government?
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So
I thought it might, but it doesn't, I guess.
Yeah. So, like when the feds pull up and they're like APC, and they like, fill your entire house with CS gas, like the tomato is not going to stop them from like just blowing you away.
Maybe the APC will get stuck like in the potato field.
Yeah, it'll get stuck in the fallow, well-tilled potato fields. It's also not going to make you more moral. Bro, I read Chesterton.
But like DK Chesterton, like he talks about this.
Yeah, if I starve and live like Leninist, like like I don't know, like someplace in like Central Africa during one of their revolutions, I'm gonna be moral, dude. Like I'm gonna get so heckin' sanctified, bro. Like, I
Based.
mean, it's unreal. Like Mozambique, there's gonna be like child soldiers, like stopping people,
Children of God, warriors of God.
warriors of God. So it's not gonna save you from the heckin' zombies. That used
Zombies.
to be a thing. I love that. That was a great
Like, what do
episode
you
in
mean?
American
Like,
pop
what do you mean it
culture.
was a thing?
The Walking Dead era of American pop culture.
Oh yeah.
I miss that so much.
Did
It's
you
also,
did you watch that show?
no, because it's just
Oh,
like shit.
I read the comic. The comic was pretty good, honestly.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. Also, it's not gonna like. Well, yeah, you can just read that last.
I don't know. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? I don't know. I don't
I don't know. I don't know.
make the
What could he have meant
redacted
by
stop
this?
promoting redacted. I don't know.
Yeah, what could he even meant by this? Okay, so let's be realistic here. If you go to the grocery store to buy product, there's big bags of like basmati rice and pinto beans, and they're cheap. You can just buy them, and it's like a decent source of food, and you could just buy a ton of that, because subsistence farming is like difficult, and
I mean,
yeah,
I think what you're trying to say is like no one's going to be starving to death anytime soon.
no, just go like if
I mean,
you're worried
like,
about
look
food,
at-
just go stock up on non-perishable like bulk items.
Yeah, exactly.
You can use your garden as like supplements, like to supplement your diet, get all your good nutrients, your fruits and veggies. It's good. It's a great hobby. You can save a lot of money. I personally have a little garden. I grow a whole bunch of food. Definitely cuts down on my grocery bills. It's a great way to save yourself some money. Okay, so let's go into the details here. So, as I'm sure you're aware, every adult needs 2,000 calories a day minimum. Just period, end of story. Like that's what you need. Lots of vegetables are fun, but they're really just not calorie dense. It's just not worth the space. So stuff like lettuce and what's it called? The stuff that's like has stalks. Celery. That's the one. Celery.
That's an obscure vegetable. I know.
Obscure vegetable known as celery. Probably not worth growing. Third point, keto is kind of a modern luxury. So if you're subsistence farming, your heckin' fad diet, your Liver King, raw sheep testicles and liver, it's just not going to happen. Okay, you're going to be eating lots of vegetables.
I don't want to be a little rabbit. I don't want to be a little rabbit muncher.
So you can grow food though. So let's talk about the kinds of foods that you can grow. I've divided them into three kind of categories. It'll keep all your needs met. If you only had to grow three kinds, this is what I would go with. I go with some carbohydrates, like squash and potatoes. We're going to talk about some greens to get all that iron and calcium and all those good nutrients. Really keep your diet nice and varied. And chickens are a great source of protein. So those are like the three big food groups. That was a very ominous sound.
What?
I just heard like this very ominous clicking noise. Okay. Anyway, so squash is like super easy. And if you don't know how to grow squash, I can't help you. But so let's talk about potatoes. Potatoes basically come in two different varieties. So there's indeterminate and determinate tomato strains. And you always want to get the indeterminate varieties, right? So how do I get potatoes, right? How do I go get the seed potatoes? Well, fun fact,
can you
just go...
explain the difference between determinate and indeterminate?
Oh, yeah. So indeterminate potatoes grow as tall as the space will allow. Their roots will grow as tall as the space will allow, and their leaves will grow as tall as the space will allow.
Okay.
Whereas determinates only grow to a certain height.
Okay.
To start growing potatoes, you can just go to the grocery store, get yourself a bag of organic potatoes, and just cut them up and grow those. Alternatively, you can go online and buy fancy seed potatoes. There's lots of great brands. Just make sure that they're indeterminate and not determinate varieties. It'll usually say most determinate potatoes are expensive. Like determinates are not. It's hard to buy them by accident. It'll say usually that they're determinate and they'll cost way more. So just make sure though. Second thing you're going to need
why
is
would anyone even use determinate potatoes? I guess if they have
very limited space and very short
okay.
growing seasons. So in order to grow these, you're going to get some polypropylene like feed bags, like animal feed comes in those big like plastic woven bags. You've probably seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are made out of polypropylene. Or else you could use like big old trash cans.
But like, won't the plastic like seep into the soil and lower my teeth?
Probably not. No.
Okay.
I mean, your food is already like all food that you buy already has that problem anyway.
Oh, it's over.
You're also gonna need a reliable water source, like obviously, and finally, you're gonna need a growing media to grow them in. So I'd recommend a dirt ash compost mix, which is probably gonna be like, about 70% dirt. Maybe as little as 50% if you have a bunch of compost. Then you're going to put about 20% compost. Then you're going to put some ash in there. It's going to be like wood ash from your fireplace. Get it, mix it all up in a wheelbarrow with a shovel, and that's going to be nice.
So to repeat that, it's like 50% dirt, 25% ash, 25% compost.
I wouldn't have quite that. I wouldn't have more than 10% ash. I'd say if you can, like 50%, probably more realistic is like 50% dirt, 50 to 70% dirt, and like 20% compost and like 10% ash.
Okay.
It's probably a good mix. So that's what you're gonna want to mix up for your potatoes to grow in. So potatoes grow super well in bags. When you get your seed potatoes out for the year, when you plant them is going to highly depend on your location or what your growing season is. I would check like the Farmer's Almanac or your local agriculture extension at the local university, or just look online at when you want to plant potatoes. You want to cut the seed potatoes into like 1-inch square chunks, basically. Now, some people say that you have to like leave at least 2 eyes of the potato on each chunk. I've not really found that to be true. In my experience, it really matters what size you make them, not how many eyes there are, because they'll generate new eyes to sprout.
Okay.
So one disadvantage, we'll later talk about all the advantages of growing in bags, but one disadvantage is that you have to plant in bags after the last frost, and you have to harvest before the first frost. Whereas if you're growing them in ground, you can actually plant them way earlier in the year, even if the ground might have frost later, because if you plant them in the ground, you're planting them like 8 inches to a foot deep, so they won't be affected by the frost.
Okay.
So at harvest time, ideally, you want to harvest them before the first frost or when the leaves have turned brown, whichever one comes first, okay? Depending on where you live, it'll probably be the first frost will happen first unless you live down in the south. And literally what you do is you just pick up the bag of potatoes and dirt, and you just shake them into a wheelbarrow and pull the potatoes out. If you're growing them in ground, you don't really have to harvest them all at once. You can actually leave the excess potatoes in the ground, and they'll just sprout into new potato plants the next year. So, as you can see on the side, there's a picture of a person using this in-bag growing method. And basically what you do is you get your feed bag, you fill it up with lots of your ash, soil, compost mix, and you fill it up nice and full. You tie off the top.
So for the mix, you want to mix it kind of like in a wheelbarrow, and then you fill up the bags.
Yeah, and then you fill up the bags with it after you've done mixing it up. So you want to fill it all up nice and full. I've seen some people like tie a like plastic bottle into the top, so like to create a funnel to pour water in.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way.
Do you want the top of the dirt to be exposed to air, or do you just want
Not
to just want
really.
to tie up
You
the
just
bag?
need a way to pour water into the top.
Okay, so kind of like you're basically filling a bag full of dirt. Okay, and then you're
Basically,
closing
and
the
you're
bag.
just creating a way to fill in water from the top that'll come all the way down.
Yeah, a water bottle would work. Yeah.
Yeah, a water bottle, a 2 liter bottle, whatever. So
Yeah.
then you're going to want to cut some like little half moon shaped holes in the side. Um, how many you cut is going to depend on how many potato plants you realistically fit in there. Um, it kind of depends, probably maybe 6 or 7. We'll get to the math on this later, but you're going to want to cut those little half moon shaped holes, and then you're going to grab your chunks of potato plant, and you're going to stick them in there. Just
So
push them into
judging
the
by this
holes.
picture, like a half moon that kind of leaves a flap because I see flaps of plastic.
It doesn't really matter. It's just cut it without ruining the bag, basically.
Okay, yeah. So cut it, but don't like compromise the bag. Kind of what you're
Right. So yeah, you're gonna want to push them in a good couple inches. Like push them well in there. Work them all in there.
saying. Okay.
I do this before you add water, so it's a little easier to push them in.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've pushed them in, a good fist length in, you're gonna fill up, start putting some water in the top, maybe a gallon or so, just to get the soil all nice and moist. And you're gonna want to water that regularly, just to make sure that there's enough water for the potatoes to grow.
So
Now,
how deep do you put it in the bag? So a fist. So like
I would push it in like a fist length deep, like 4 or 5 inches. It'll come out.
Okay.
It'll like grow its way out. Okay.
okay, but so it's not a massive deal. Like if you buried them a little deep or something.
No,
you're gonna
you
still figure
can't.
it out.
It's way better to bury them a little deep than a little shallow. The plants can figure out where the sun is and will instinctively poke out of the hole.
Okay.
So, obviously, the side you cut the holes in is going to be the side facing the sun. Like, duh. There's another way that you can do bags where you put a layer of the mix at the bottom. Then you put a layer of potatoes, and then you cover them with like 6 inches of dirt, water them. Don't close up the bag and let them sprout up.
Yeah.
Right? And then you progressively add more dirt as they keep growing taller and taller, so that they're growing out of the top of the bag. Now, this means that it's not as dependent on where the sun is because it's growing out of the top instead of out of the sides of the bag. But frankly, that just seems like a lot of work to me. If you grow with big trash bins, you'll probably have to do it that way, though you probably could drill holes in the side of the trash bin and do it like the bag method. One thing, though, is if you use trash cans, you're going to want to drill some little holes in the bottom of the trash can so that water drains out. You don't have to do that with the bags, but you do with the trash cans because the potatoes will rot at the bottom where there's water pooling.
Yeah, that
You
makes
don't
sense.
want that.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of math about potatoes. Potatoes provide 350 calories per pound, and every potato plant provides about 3 pounds of potatoes if you give it enough fertilizer. So that's not bad. That's like 1,050 calories per plant. Now, assuming that
This is in every, and you're gonna have like 7 plants per bag, theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically, you could have about 7 plants per bag. So,
Okay.
assuming that you needed 80% of your calories in a year to come from potatoes, which is kind of unrealistic, you would need
That's gonna get
584,000 potato calories per year, which would be 556 potato plants. So that's not crazy, but it's still that's a lot. I don't think you're going to need quite that many potatoes.
That'd be like a whole backyard. I mean,
Yeah, basically.
like a big backyard. Your entire backyard would be filled up with that. But I mean, it's better than starving to death. So
Yeah, so here's a little more realistic scenario where you have other food sources. You're still eating at a subsistence level at only 2,000 calories a day, but potatoes only make up 10% of your calorie intake. So for that situation, you're only going to need 73,000 potato calories per year, which means you're only going to need 70 potato plants to survive, which isn't that really that many? I mean, potatoes, the bags can hold a few plants. I would definitely like look up how large your plants will grow and kind of
And
be smart with that.
assuming like one bag of potatoes in the store is like $5, right? A decent bag,
Yeah.
and that bag probably has like one or two plants worth of potatoes in it or something.
Oh, no, 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 no. Each potato can grow like 4 plants.
Well, no. I meant like what I'm trying to say is like I'm trying to think about how much money you could save just by like instead of having to buy potatoes, you just grow them all yourself.
Oh,
You know, you could
potatoes
really
aren't a
save
cash
couple-
crop. I would say don't. You're not going to really save money with potatoes as a cash crop because,
Yeah,
especially if you live near like Idaho or like I don't know South Dakota, I think grows a lot of potatoes too. You're just not going to be. You're not going to be. It's just not cost effective since potatoes are so cheap there.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So it's not a cash crop. Greens are a cash crop. You can sell them at like a farmer's market, or just growing vegetables can save you money. But potatoes are for survival. This episode is about survival, not growing cash crops. I could do an episode on growing cash crops.
well, I'm just thinking about saving money like pragmatically for yourself. But
Pragmatically, I would say you're going to want to grow stuff like spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, things that actually do cost a bit of money.
and the chickens seem like that'd be a good investment for the eggs.
It's pretty much net zero with the chickens. 'Cause after feed, it's pretty close
Yeah,
to net zero either way.
fair enough.
So anyway, storing potatoes very important. Potatoes need to cure. Potatoes have a protective skin around them. Obviously, it's what we peel off before we eat them. And when you harvest your potatoes, basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your big old sack, and like I said before, you're just going to shake out the entire contents of the sack into a wheelbarrow, and you're just going to pick out the potatoes one by hand. Okay, you're just going to be real
Okay.
careful with them. If the skins get damaged, you're going to have to eat those right away because they're not going to store well.
Yeah.
So that's just a thing that you have to watch out for. So if they're like got little nicks on them when you poured them out, those are going to be those are the potatoes you're going to have to eat first. Second thing is that there's going to be some potatoes which have green skin. They have green spots on skin. You don't want to eat those. It's not safe to eat them.
What would happen if you ate
Those,
them?
it's poisonous.
Oh, okay.
Those potatoes that are a bit green, you'll just cure them like the rest, and those will be your seed potatoes for next year. There's nothing physically wrong with them. They grow just fine. They're just not safe to eat. So the potatoes,
So you take a green potato and you can grow it back into normal
yeah,
potatoes.
you just cure it like the regular potatoes. Just keep it off to the side, and then that'll be your seed potatoes for next year. Coming out like out of each potato batch, it might be as much as 10% of your potatoes have green on them, which means that you can have a nice conservative little, seed saving for the next year.
And 10% of your potatoes saved for seed is more than enough.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
But some will be lost to spoilage. Some will be too small to plant. Some will just look weird and gross and be rotten. So there's always a little bit of, you have to take that kind of stuff into account. So
Yeah.
here's how to cure them is once you've harvested them, you're going to want to lay out like a tarp or something in the full sunlight. And you're going to want to leave them out in the sun for a couple days to dry completely and cure. Turn them over halfway through so they get a little bit cooked by the sun on both sides. Obviously not in like glaring, blasting full day sun, but in a place like your porch or something where they're going to get some sun, they're going to be exposed to air. It's going to harden up their skins.
Okay.
Then you're going to lay them out in your basement or another cool, dry, dark place for 5 days to finish the curing process. So it's going to be about a week. Curing potatoes takes about a week. So you're going to want to take that into account when you look at your first frost date, and you're going to want to plan your harvest accordingly.
Okay.
You can store potatoes. You want to store them in a cool, dry place, like a box cushioned with straw. So what you do is you put a layer of straw down, set one layer of potatoes, making sure they're not touching each other in case one rots, the others won't rot. Then place another layer of straw and then a layer of potatoes and so on. if for whatever reason that isn't possible, you could just make enormous quantities of mashed potatoes and freeze them, which works just fine. If you had an enormous freezer, you could do that. It seems like a lot of work, but you could. So that's just how you store them. I mean, that's what's really important, so that you have a good food source. So next food group we're going to talk about is greens. Starch is important, but you need all kinds of other nutrients too. You want to get your calcium, your iron, your vitamin C, your potassium, all that good stuff. I've picked 3 great greens. Kale, spinach, and broccoli and chard are going to be really nice and nutritious options. They're not calorie dense, but they don't provide a calorie deficit relative to the nutrition they provide. So stuff like celery is not very nutritious and doesn't provide any calories. Stuff like lettuce is not very nutritious and doesn't provide any calories. These are not very calorically dense, but they got lots of good nutrients in them. So kale, spinach, broccoli, chard are great stuff. Chard is very flavorful. You can fry it, you can boil it, you make soup out of it. Same with kale. Broccoli. Another reason why I chose these 4 is that they can be frozen. You can cut the leaves off of chard and kale and spinach, and you can freeze those. You can cut the heads off broccoli, and it will regrow new heads, and you can freeze the heads all year.
So like you could cut off a broccoli head,
and it will grow a new one.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you'll harvest many heads of broccoli from the same plant throughout the year. So obviously stuff like lettuce is not going to work freezing it, but all of these, including spinach, I found freeze very well, and they can be eaten all year round. So it means you can have a supply of nice, nutritious vegetables, throughout the winter. Yeah. So how you grow these highly depends on where you live. Again, first frost date. Last frost, first frost. You're going to want to check that stuff out. You're going to want to read up on your area and when to plant all these plants, whether or not you want to start them.
So if the first frost would kill these.
First frost will kill all of these, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you don't want to do that.
Or not the first, the last frost, I mean, if you planted them early. Yeah.
Some of these, like broccoli, will actually survive the last frost, and you can leave them in the ground, and they may provide a little bit of extra, though their yield will be greatly diminished.
Okay, I see.
For a couple weeks after the first frost of the winter. Yeah, I was going to say something else about why I chose these. Oh, yeah, the other reason why I chose these is that every single part of them is edible, including the roots. So broccoli, every part, including the leaves and the roots, is edible. Same with chard, kale and spinach. Every part of the plant is edible.
And that's rhubarb on the right, or on the left, I mean.
No, it's Swiss chard.
Oh, it's Swiss chard? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing in the middle?
Kale.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you could eat every part of these, including the roots, if you had to. Whereas like tomatoes, you don't want to be eating the leaves of the tomatoes or the roots. Same with potatoes as well. They're both nightshade plants. You don't want to be eating potato leaves. But the carbs are so great from the potatoes.
The keto bros say that like every part of a nightshade's toxic, including the tomato.
Well, yeah, have fun starving. Well, look, the reason why I chose potatoes, this is kind of off topic, but one of the reasons why I chose potatoes is that it's just the most efficient carbohydrate source. None of the others are space efficient. You cannot grow enough corn in your backyard to live. Period. End of story. You cannot grow enough wheat in your backyard to live. Period. End of story. Also, wheat and cereal grains are just super fussy. They require constant attention, and if you mess it up, you can grow things like ergot fungus, which are poisonous.
It's also way more to produce or to refine because
it's a lot more work.
With a potato, you can take a potato out of the ground and just take a bite out of it there.
Yeah, you can't
do that. It's not going to
taste
grain.
Very good. But exactly.
You know what I mean, yeah.
And potatoes, you can make mashed potatoes, boiled potatoes. You can have your trad wife make potato bread, a ton of options.
Return to tradition.
Return to tradition. So greens, you're going to want to look up, do some research on planting them where you live to get the best results. So finally, we got chickens. Chickens are very important because protein keeps you strong. It builds your muscles. You got to have a source of protein to live on. Now, a good chicken will produce an egg a day for about 3 years. And each egg is 60 calories and has all kinds of stuff that we need. Has both the yolk and the white are very nutritious. In a pinch, you can even grind up the shells and eat those to provide extra calcium.
Yummy.
Older chickens, once they've stopped producing eggs, can be stewed. They're going to be real tough, but they're called like stew hens.
Yeah. Okay.
Not as tasty. I wouldn't eat them if I didn't have to, but yeah, you can slaughter the old chickens.
Well, I'm sure they're pretty good in a stew.
Yeah, you stew them up. Young chickens, you buy them at the feed store as chicks, and you want to feed them up for about 5 months, and then slaughter them at 5 months. They'll be grown at that point. That they'll be at basically the optimal. If you fed them enough, they'll be at their optimal age. So it's not a very long time to raise them if you're just intending on eating them.
And then chickens, realistically, you're gonna have to buy feed. Like, you probably won't be able to generate enough scrap for them to eat.
It depends. They'll eat the off cuttings of everything that we've discussed previously. Obviously, they won't eat potato leaves. I don't even think if you put it in front of them, they eat it. But they'll eat things in the yard, worms and mice and small insects.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, how many calories does a chicken need every day? Do you have any idea? Probably like a couple hundred every day.
It's a lot. I think it's probably around the 300 mark at least.
Okay.
So they're very high.
I mean, you want to feed them as much as you can, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Chickens will. Actually, is the next slide about? Okay. Yeah. We'll skip that part for now and just talk about what to feed them. So here's a list of stuff you can feed chickens. So obviously table scraps, any off cuttings of vegetables. Earthworms, if you have a worm farm or you're just digging worms out of the garden, you can feed those. I have here sprouted grains because what I found is that if you moisten the grains of things like barley and stuff like that and red wheat and you sprout them first before feeding it to them, the chickens digest it better. It also unlocks a lot of the nutrients when you sprout the grains, which is why hipsters love like bean sprouts and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So it also deters squirrels and mice from eating all your chicken food because rodents have to be eating hard food to wear their teeth down, and they're averse to eating soft food. So if you have softer sprouted grains out in your chicken feed, the mice and the squirrels won't eat it. If you don't do this, you're going to lose a lot of your feed to pest animals, which is no good. Final thing, organs and guts. So fish guts, guts from animals. Chickens will eat deer guts. If you're a hunter, they will strip carcasses for you. If you can put out
useful.
You could put out like half of it, like a pig carcass that you've cleaned off and that you've prepared all the meat for, or a deer carcass or anything like that, and they'll clean it for you. They love iron. They love meat. They're not vegetarians. Chickens love meat, and it's good for them. It really ups their egg production, so they can eat a whole bunch of different things that otherwise you probably wouldn't want to eat yourself, but it's a shame to waste them. So chickens are very useful.
How will this affect the flavor of chickens, the meat?
Of their meat?
Does it really matter?
Any chicken that you raise is probably going to be a little more gamey than a chicken that you buy that was fed on like exclusively corn.
Yeah.
But I've not heard anyone reporting unusual or weird flavor from changing up the diets of the chickens too much. The only exception being large quantities of fish guts. If you feed a lot of fish guts to chickens, their flesh tastes a bit fishy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's to be expected.
Another thing I would just say is don't feed your chickens GMO seeds that are colored, because those have chemicals on them that will kill them.
Yeah. Well,
so if you get your hands on those, do not feed those to to animals.
Yeah, don't
Because
feed them
that
like
happened.
stuff
That
covered in
happened.
pesticide.
Yeah, that happened at a place, and I won't say where it is, but it basically killed a bunch of birds, and yeah, it was pretty bad.
If you could even get your hands on that, don't use it for chickens. Simple as.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a whole bunch of different chicken varieties out there, and I've picked some 4 really good ones, 3 that are great egg producers, and 1 that's a great meat producer. All of these are heritage breeds, meaning that they're not hybridized. They're like historical breeds.
So is that like pre-Hart Cellar chickens, like heritage breeds?
Yeah, they're like the founding stock chickens. Some of these have actually been around for centuries. So these breeds are very hardy. But the reason why I didn't choose hybrids is even though their egg production might be a bit better, they tend to, when you breed them together, if you have a rooster and you try to breed them together, even with other hybrids, they tend to produce kind of weird chickens.
Okay.
Some of which may not even produce eggs, or who might be a bit just not as good.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You know, like you mix different types of chicken together, and you get bad results.
Yes, these are pure chickens.
Yeah, pure. Yes.
So you're going to go for Rhode Island Reds, Americanas, and Barred Rocks are going to be solid choices for egg production. Buff Orpingtons are going to be solid for meat production. They get super fat, and you eat them at like 5 months. Very succulent meat.
So about having these, so do you want to keep different breeds of chicken away from each other, or
No,
does it matter?
That probably won't be a problem.
Okay.
And
then these,
like if you have roosters, you might produce chickens that are somewhat hybridized, but they're not going to be the same as like the weird hybrids that have been specifically made as hybrid breeds for like extra egg production. If you have a rooster and you have like various kinds of diverse chickens, it probably won't be a problem. It probably won't be a problem.
So you do not want magic chickens, is what you're saying.
I'm saying don't get ones that were specifically bred to be hybrids.
Okay. And then, so out of these egg breeds, is there one you prefer the most, or?
Rhode Island Reds are easiest, probably.
And then what do they sell at like local? Because like we see this at
all of these should be available at most
hardware
hardware stores that sell chickens.
Okay.
These are real common breeds.
Okay.
So, finally, bonus stuff. There's all kinds of like exotic agriculture methods, like aquaponics, hydroponics, and zero dig gardening. I just wouldn't recommend these for beginners. They may look really like space efficient and exciting, but you got to know what you're doing, and they're very high maintenance things. So, don't get into this stuff if you don't really know what you're doing. I would just start with like, bag gardening, potatoes, and just growing greens in ground or in containers. I wouldn't go for these exotic agriculture types. So in summary, you got to be realistic about gardening, what your gardening goals are, and what you're actually going to do with it. Realistically, you can just go out and buy dry goods and live on that. You stock up on a bunch of dry goods. Calories are important. If you're doing subsistence farming, you need to plan ahead of time and know how many calories you're going to need, know how much of each kind of food you're going to need, take into account things like the risk of spoilage or loss due to unexpected frosts. So 3 great food sources are going to be potatoes for carbohydrates, greens for nutrients, and chickens for protein from eggs and meat. Finally, the most important thing you got to do is you got to get other people, right? You got to find another family that kind of has your similar viewpoints and can work with you on this stuff. It really helps. You can do things like really have a comparative advantage, take advantage of that.
Yeah.
I know Chestertonians are just like coping and seeding. Like everything has to be like this home production island that doesn't make anything for anyone else.
Yes.
But Yeah, you gotta want to find. It's just good practice in general to do this, but really important for farming so that you can specialize in different kinds of crops and trade crops with each other. Don't try to like go out and find every crop and grow it. Just pick a handful and get good at growing those. Research your local planting season and weather. Go to your local university extension office for agriculture. There usually is one, and you can usually call them and ask them to send you resources about planting.
A lot of colleges also have gardens that you can like apply for a plot and start.
Yeah, I would just do this in your house though. Anyway, so yeah, you want to plan ahead always, and of course, the most important rule is to have fun. Important rule.
Millions must thrive.
Millions must thrive. Millions must survive. So, what did you think about this?
I think it's pretty cool. I think this could be pretty useful in certain scenarios, like if you're like pretty poor, but like at the same time you kind of live on a larger semi-rural property, or even a property with a decent backyard. You could probably save some money on foodstuffs and greens.
And if you were going to do it,
like the nice thing is you'd be improving your diet massively. So like, you're not gobbling down sloppa anymore. You're eating like healthy food way more, and healthy greens that you grew yourself.
I would say if you're going that route, don't grow potatoes. If you're trying to save money, focus on greens, tomatoes, things that are expensive at the grocery store. Potatoes are just so cheap that this is for survival.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is not for.
I mean, obviously for survival, this is also useful. I mean, if America keeps becoming more magical over time, stuff like this could be useful, especially in more remote parts of America. I mean, like
exactly.
Like you kind of see this in like Russia and like Ukraine and those places. Like a lot of the really old people, like I mean, a lot of the programs and the government systems are kind of fell away, and a lot of them rely on gardens like this to supplement much of their food supplies because the pensions they receive are just not big enough. So stuff like this can be very useful.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just thinking about animals, obviously a cow is pretty expensive, but like, what about a goat or something like that?
The reason why I didn't choose goats or any ruminant animals, excuse me, is because they eat an enormous amount of food. I've owned Nubian goats before, and those are like a medium-sized goat. They're not even like the largest, and they produce a decent amount of milk. Like I would say, as much as half a gallon a day if you have a really good one.
That's really good.
It's a lot of milk.
I mean, just to like the big gallon ones at the store. That's like half of that.
Yeah, but the problem is you have to have a reliable source of food, and goats can't eat hay like horses can. They need alfalfa. In order to produce milk, they need a lot more nutrients, so they have to eat alfalfa, which I think is actually a legume. So I don't know if you're familiar with like a bale of hay of hay of fodder. A flake is like a 4-inch chunk pulled off of that because they kind of peel away. You're gonna want to feed them like 2 to 3 of those a day. 2 to 3 flakes a day, which means that you are going to need a massive stack of alfalfa bales to feed them over the winter.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, if you live in like California or like in the Southwest, or even in the South, and like you had like a decent amount of land, goats might not be a bad idea because they can get a lot of their food probably from the land itself.
But I mean, just for smaller
operation,
you gotta go with chickens.
Yeah. I mean, what about like a pig? That might not be a terrible idea.
They need a lot of infrastructure. You need to have like proper hog panels. You need to have posts that are well anchored into the ground. Also, pigs are kind of violent.
Yeah, they can be.
Require a lot of
they're
maintenance.
huge. Pigs get big. Like people don't realize how big pigs can get.
So I would say chickens are just definitely the way to go.
Yeah, like for most, that's why like a lot of normal people have chickens in their house, like on their like small property
Right, you could even raise
in
them
town or
indoors
out
if
rural
you had
areas.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then like corn. You talked about corn. Like personally, I would prefer to have corn more than potatoes.
I've tried. It doesn't produce enough. You couldn't live off of it, and
Not without a lot more room and
it requires a lot more
commitment.
fertilizer. You can't grow it in containers efficiently. You need a big field of it. You need a way to it's much harder. You need to have a mill, because a hand mill, like I don't know if you've ever been to like historical reenactments where they're like women grinding corn with those giant corn poles.
The trad convention.
Yeah, the trad convention where the tradwives are grinding corn. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of time. And potatoes, you just boil them and eat them. So
yeah, potatoes really just seem like the best simple option for what this is trying to be.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else?
I can't think of anything for this. I do want to talk about our plans for the future.
Yeah, go
of the
ahead.
program. So obviously we didn't have an episode in like a month, but we're busy, and we recorded this like 3 weeks ago, and it broke. So, we kind of took a little bit of a hiatus, but we have good plans for summer, and I think next week we might do something really cool with Cardinal Newman.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a very unpopular episode.
Wait, is Cardinal Newman? Is he like a red pilled guy to some people in the movement or something?
Yes, he is.
Like who?
And
Like the distributists or something?
I don't know what his opinion on Newman is. I just don't see why people like him. I don't.
Like
I'm
who?
reading through.
Like who? Which faction is this? Like the Tradcasts or?
There is a faction of Tradcast that really like Newman. Because there's stuff in Newman that's really good, but it's like it's good because it was just older. It's basically like,
I get it. Yeah, it's like when
legacy progressivism sounds like super right wing.
Yeah, it's like when Theodore Roosevelt's based. Like, yeah, that's based, but like today he would be a shitlib. So we got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we'll probably be reading like chapter 5 of Development of Doctrine, which is like,
oh man,
I'm reading through this now, and it's like
I'm pretty excited. Honestly, this is gonna be. We haven't done a theology thing in a while, so this will be cool.
Yeah, they usually get good views.
Okay, and then this summer we're thinking of doing a book series. I don't know, like not a book series, but we're gonna follow a kind of popular book in the movement and break it down chapter by chapter. I'm thinking Decline of the West, but that's a really dense book. I've read like 2 chapters of it, and it is extremely esoteric and complex. So we might do something a little easier. Are you still up for that, John?
Yeah, if anyone has any ideas, go ahead and drop a comment. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe.
Oh yeah, we got a shill. Go on our Substack and read about how like watching videos of cop shootings is actually based. Go do that. Yeah, I mean that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Anything else, John?
No.
Okay.
All right, this has been the Knights of Dissent show, episode 8. I'm John.
And I'm Rats.
And thank you for watching.